General Patricia Blackwood spent sleepless nights personally reviewing satellite imagery to ensure her bombing campaigns only targeted enemy combatants. Her dedication to protecting innocent lives was legendary. She had canceled dozens of missions to avoid any risk to civilians. Her precision had saved countless families in war zones. But when cybersecurity experts finally traced the source of targeting data corruption, they discovered that enemy hackers had been feeding her false intelligence for months, turning her humanitarian mission into their weapon against her own allies. General Patricia Blackwood had earned her reputation as the most ethically minded commander in the United States Air Force through her unwavering commitment to precision warfare and civilian protection. Her innovative targeting protocols had revolutionized modern military strategy by demonstrating that strategic objectives could be achieved without compromising humanitarian principles. Which city in the world are you watching this video from today? Please subscribe and support us for more stories. Blackwood's military career had been built on a foundation of moral conviction that stemmed from her childhood experiences during humanitarian crises overseas, where she had witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of indiscriminate warfare on civilian populations, particularly children and families caught in conflict zones. The ethical framework that guided Blackwood's strategic decision-making included comprehensive civilian impact assessments, multiple verification protocols for target identification, and personal review procedures that required her direct approval for every bombing mission under her command. Her approach to military leadership emphasized the integration of humanitarian considerations with strategic effectiveness, challenging traditional military doctrine that often treated civilian casualties as acceptable collateral damage in pursuit of tactical objectives. The targeting system that Blackwood had helped develop incorporated advanced artificial intelligence, satellite imagery analysis, and real-time intelligence feeds designed to distinguish between legitimate military targets and civilian infrastructure with unprecedented accuracy and reliability. Blackwood's personal involvement in target verification went far beyond standard military protocols, as she insisted on personally reviewing satellite imagery, intelligence reports, and damage assessments to ensure that every bombing mission aligned with her ethical standards and strategic objectives. The reputation that Blackwood had established throughout the international military community was based on her successful combination of tactical effectiveness and humanitarian responsibility, earning recognition from both military leaders and human rights organizations. Her strategic innovations had been studied and adopted by allied militaries, seeking to improve their own precision targeting capabilities, while minimizing civilian casualties and infrastructure damage that could complicate post-conflict reconstruction efforts. The psychological burden that Blackwood carried as a result of her commitment to civilian protection manifested in her meticulous attention to detail, extensive verification procedures, and personal responsibility for every aspect of her bombing campaigns. Blackwood's typical mission planning process involved days of careful analysis, cross-referencing multiple intelligence sources, consulting with civilian affairs specialists, and conducting simulations to predict and minimize unintended consequences of military action. The first bombing campaign under Blackwood's command had targeted what intelligence reports identified as an enemy weapons manufacturing facility, located in a remote industrial area with minimal civilian population density and clear separation from residential neighborhoods. Blackwood had spent 3 days personally reviewing satellite imagery, intelligence reports, and reconnaissance data to verify that the target was indeed a legitimate military installation and that bombing the facility would not endanger civilian lives or critical infrastructure. The mission briefing that Blackwood conducted with her bomber crews emphasized the importance of precision targeting, backup verification procedures, and abort protocols if any visual confirmation suggested the presence of civilian activity in the target area. The successful destruction of what appeared to be the weapons facility had been celebrated as a model of precision warfare, with post-strike analysis confirming direct hits on the intended target, with no apparent civilian casualties or collateral damage to surrounding areas. The second bombing mission had targeted what intelligence sources described as an enemy command and control center located in a fortified compound that satellite imagery showed as isolated from civilian areas and containing military vehicles and communication equipment. Blackwood's personal review of the targeting data had included consultation with humanitarian organizations operating in the region to ensure that no civilian facilities or refugee camps were located near the proposed target area. The precision strike on the command center had eliminated what appeared to be a critical enemy operational hub while maintaining Blackwood's perfect record of zero civilian casualties through careful planning and ethical military leadership. The third mission had involved destruction of what intelligence reports identified as an enemy logistics hub, responsible for coordinating supply lines and troop movements in support of hostile operations against Allied forces and civilian populations. The target verification process for the logistics mission had been particularly thorough, as Blackwood was aware that supply facilities were sometimes located near civilian infrastructure or used dual-purpose buildings that could house both military and civilian operations. The successful completion of the logistics mission had further enhanced Blackwood's reputation for combining strategic effectiveness with humanitarian responsibility, as post-strike reconnaissance confirmed destruction of military supplies without damage to surrounding civilian areas. The pattern of successful missions continued as Blackwood's command executed precise strikes against what intelligence sources identified as enemy training facilities, communication centers, ammunition depots, and vehicle maintenance operations. Each mission followed Blackwood's rigorous verification protocols, with multiple sources confirming target legitimacy, civilian impact assessments showing minimal risk, and personal approval from Blackwood herself based on her ethical standards and strategic judgment. The intelligence data that supported Blackwood's targeting decisions appeared to be comprehensive and reliable, incorporating satellite imagery, electronic surveillance, human intelligence sources, and analytical assessments from multiple military and intelligence agencies. But the sophisticated cyber warfare operation that had infiltrated Blackwood's intelligence network was systematically corrupting every piece of targeting data that reached her command, replacing legitimate enemy installations with the locations of Allied military bases and friendly forces. The enemy hackers responsible for the intelligence corruption had spent months studying Blackwood's targeting protocols, ethical standards, and verification procedures to ensure that their false data would pass all of her security checks and align with her humanitarian principles. The cyber sabotage operation involved manipulation of satellite imagery databases, falsification of intelligence reports, creation of fake human intelligence sources, and corruption of communication intercepts that formed the foundation of Blackwood's targeting decisions. The hackers had identified Blackwood as their primary target because of her reputation for ethical leadership and her influence over strategic bombing operations, recognizing that her moral authority would provide cover for attacks against Allied forces. The digital manipulation techniques used by the enemy hackers were sophisticated enough to pass advanced security protocols and fool expert analysts, incorporating authentic intelligence data patterns and realistic tactical assessments. The first Allied base that was destroyed as a result of the corrupted intelligence had been presented to Blackwood as an enemy weapons storage facility, complete with fabricated satellite imagery showing military vehicles and personnel that appeared to confirm hostile activity. Blackwood's personal review of the targeting data had included verification of civilian evacuation procedures, assessment of collateral damage risks, and confirmation that the target posed a legitimate threat to Allied operations and civilian safety. The bombing mission that destroyed the Allied base had been executed with Blackwood's characteristic precision, resulting in the deaths of 180 friendly soldiers who had been conducting routine training exercises when the attack occurred. The post-strike intelligence reports provided to Blackwood had confirmed successful destruction of the apparent enemy facility and elimination of hostile personnel, maintaining the illusion that her mission had achieved its intended strategic objectives. The second Allied installation targeted through the corrupted intelligence network had been disguised as an enemy communication center that satellite imagery appeared to show coordinating hostile operations against civilian populations in nearby cities. Blackwood's verification process for the Communications Center mission had included consultation with signals intelligence specialists who confirmed that the facility was apparently transmitting enemy coordination messages and tactical communications. The destruction of the second Allied base had killed 2020 military personnel who were operating a legitimate intelligence-gathering station focused on monitoring actual enemy communications and providing security for Allied operations in the region. The third corrupted target had been presented as an enemy training camp where satellite imagery showed what appeared to be hostile forces conducting combat preparation and weapons training in support of terrorist operations against civilian targets. Blackwood's analysis of the training camp target had included review of intelligence assessments, suggesting that the facility was preparing operatives for attacks against humanitarian aid workers and civilian infrastructure in Allied-controlled territories. The bombing of the third location had eliminated 150 Allied Special Operations personnel who were conducting counterterrorism training designed to protect civilian populations from the very threats that Blackwood believed she was helping to eliminate. The fourth false target had been identified as an enemy logistics center supporting hostile operations through supply distribution and transportation coordination that enabled continued attacks against Allied forces and civilian communities. The intelligence reports supporting the logistics center mission had included detailed analysis of supply routes, transportation schedules, and resource distribution patterns that appeared to confirm the facility's role in sustaining enemy operations. The destruction of the fourth target had killed 95 Allied personnel operating a humanitarian supply distribution center that was providing medical aid, food assistance, and emergency supplies to civilian populations affected by ongoing conflict. The pattern of corrupted targeting data continued as enemy hackers provided Blackwood with false intelligence about additional enemy installations that were actually Allied medical facilities, communication centers, training bases, and logistical operations. Each false target was presented with sophisticated supporting documentation, fabricated satellite imagery, and artificial intelligence assessments that aligned with Blackwood's ethical standards and strategic priorities while concealing the true nature of the facilities. The psychological impact on Blackwood of conducting what she believed to be successful humanitarian warfare was significant, as she took personal pride in her ability to achieve military objectives while protecting innocent lives and supporting Allied operations. The enemy's strategic objective in targeting Blackwood's operations was to eliminate Allied military capabilities while destroying the reputation and morale of one of the most respected humanitarian military leaders in the Allied command structure. The cybersecurity investigation that eventually exposed the intelligence corruption began when Allied cyber warfare specialists noticed unusual patterns in intelligence data flows and communication protocols affecting multiple command centers throughout the theater of operations. The digital forensics analysis revealed sophisticated malware installations within military intelligence networks that had been specifically designed to target Blackwood's command structure and corrupt her targeting verification systems. The investigation team discovered that enemy hackers had gained access to classified intelligence databases through a combination of social engineering, insider recruitment, and advanced persistent threat techniques that had remained undetected for over 8 months. The evidence of intelligence corruption included analysis of data manipulation algorithms, identification of false satellite imagery insertion points, and reconstruction of communication interception methods used to feed false information to Blackwood's verification systems. The realization that Blackwood had been unknowingly attacking Allied forces based on corrupted intelligence data was devastating to military leadership and represented one of the most successful enemy psychological warfare operations in modern military history. The immediate response to the discovery of intelligence corruption included suspension of all bombing operations under Blackwood's command, comprehensive review of targeting protocols, and emergency communication with Allied forces to assess the full scope of the damage. The psychological impact on Blackwood herself was profound, as she struggled to comprehend that her dedication to humanitarian warfare had been systematically exploited to achieve exactly the opposite of her intended objectives. The investigation into Blackwood's mental state confirmed that she had acted in good faith throughout the corrupted intelligence period, following all established protocols and maintaining her ethical standards while unknowingly participating in attacks against friendly forces. The evidence exonerating Blackwood included documentation of her verification procedures, records of her consultation with humanitarian specialists, and testimony from her staff, confirming her consistent commitment to civilian protection and strategic ethics. The broader implications of the intelligence corruption operation extended beyond Blackwood's command to include comprehensive review of cybersecurity protocols, intelligence verification procedures, and command authority structures throughout the Allied military organization. The technological countermeasures implemented in response to the cyber warfare attack included enhanced encryption systems, multiple source verification requirements, and artificial intelligence detection algorithms designed to identify data manipulation attempts. The enemy operatives responsible for the intelligence corruption were eventually identified through digital forensics analysis, international intelligence cooperation, and counter-espionage operations that traced the cyber attacks to their source. The legal and ethical review of Blackwood's actions concluded that she had been the victim of sophisticated enemy psychological warfare rather than a perpetrator of war crimes, as her consistent adherence to humanitarian principles had been documented throughout the period of intelligence corruption. The institutional reforms implemented after the intelligence corruption incident included enhanced cybersecurity training, improved verification protocols, and establishment of redundant intelligence systems designed to prevent similar manipulation of military leadership. The psychological support provided to Blackwood included counseling for trauma related to unwitting participation in friendly fire incidents, career counseling regarding her future role in military leadership, and recognition of her status as a victim of enemy psychological warfare. The impact on military doctrine included comprehensive review of the relationship between humanitarian military leadership and vulnerability to enemy psychological operations, with development of new protocols designed to protect ethical commanders from exploitation. The international response to the intelligence corruption incident included diplomatic protests against the enemy nation, responsible for the cyber warfare operation, enhanced intelligence sharing agreements among allied nations, and development of joint cybersecurity standards. The long-term consequences for Blackwood's career included reassignment to cybersecurity leadership roles, where her experience as a victim of intelligence corruption provided valuable insight for protecting other military leaders from similar exploitation. The historical analysis of the intelligence corruption operation revealed it as one of the most sophisticated examples of enemy psychological warfare in modern military history, demonstrating how ethical leadership could be weaponized against itself through technological manipulation. General Patricia Blackwood had indeed conducted precise bombing campaigns that eliminated critical targets while maintaining her commitment to humanitarian principles, but every target she attacked had been an Allied installation disguised through enemy cyber warfare as legitimate military objectives. The Allied personnel who died in Blackwood's bombing campaigns had been victims of enemy psychological warfare rather than friendly fire incidents, as their deaths resulted from sophisticated intelligence corruption rather than tactical errors or ethical failures by their own commanders. Blackwood's legacy became a reminder that modern warfare includes cyber-psychological operations designed to turn the ethical principles and humanitarian commitments of military leaders into weapons against their own forces and mission objectives. The intelligence corruption that targeted Blackwood's command demonstrated how enemy nations could achieve strategic objectives by exploiting the moral authority and ethical leadership of Allied commanders while maintaining plausible deniability about their involvement in friendly fire incidents.